All right, to hear the administration tell it, these are the sinister six. Only in the case of former FBI Director James Comey and number two at the Justice Department, Andy McCabe, they don't have that security clearance anymore. But that was not the point. The point was that, at least in the eyes of Democrats and a lot of Republicans, this was sort of tin pot dictator type of stuff. You're going after guys who are saying some bad things about you, trying to take their security clearance away. But simple-minded reporter though I am, I started saying to myself, how is it that people who've been years out of power still have these security clearances, can still get access to all of this intelligence? And then I'm saying, how long do they have that for? And who decides this? And is it just a courtesy or is it just overkill? To Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz, probably knows these matters in and out. Senator, good to have you back with us.
Always good to be with you, Neil. Thanks for having me.
How long do folks have this type of access, Senator, and who and how many?
Well, listen, I think you raise a perfectly fair question, which is it's not clear that people should be maintaining security clearances if it's not needed for their current responsibilities. When someone is in the job of head of the CIA or director of national intelligence, obviously it's needed intensely. But if you're not in that role anymore, if you're doing something else in the private sector, it's not clear why it should be maintained. And let me say more fundamentally, look, what our focus should be across party lines is protecting the national security interests of the country. I mean, this is a divided time. For all of us, I think it's painful to see just how polarized and nasty it is. But it doesn't help the national security interest when you have someone like a John Brennan, the former head of the CIA, who begins screaming that the president has committed treason. I mean, that kind of overheated rhetoric is not productive. It's not helpful. And it just tears us apart. And so I would hope that these former officials would demonstrate some restraint not to immediately go to extreme hyperbole.
Well, what do you think of president officials like Senator Bob Corker, who said that this is the stuff that banana republics do, or this vendetta that the president seems to be on is a dangerous, slippery slope?
Well, look, lots of people use all sorts of rhetoric. I think what we ought to be focusing on is substance. You know,
do you think he went too far in that characterization?
You know, what I will say is a lot of this discussion started with the president's news conference with Putin. I think President Trump made a mistake with Putin. I think he should have been more vigorous in that news conference. I think it's a bad idea for the president not to be visibly and vocally standing up to Russia. Now that being said, I think what matters most is substance. And I'm encouraged in the last year and a half that we've put strong sanctions on Russia. I'm encouraged that the administration has provided lethal aid to Ukraine to stand up to Russia. But I think we need to continue focusing on defending this nation and not be in a position of treating America and Russia as morally equivalent, not be in a position of apologizing for Russia.
No, I understand what you're saying, but Senator, do you worry that the president, whether he, sent the wrong message or used the wrong words, I take him at his word that that's what happened here, but do you think that in the process here he is confusing folks? Because today, sending out a tweet that he thinks that the Russians, he's watching to see if they try to get involved in this election. He's convinced that they'll be, if they do so, they'll be there to help the Democrats because they don't want to help him. What did you make of that?
I think there is a virtue in clarity in foreign policy, clarity standing with our friends, and clarity standing up to our enemies. Putin is a KGB thug. It's not complicated. He's not a complicated man. You know, Putin has been very candid, saying he thinks the greatest geopolitical disaster of the 21st century is the dissolution of the Soviet Union, and I think Putin is trying to expand. So do you think they should cancel
this fall meeting that they have already? We're getting word that Vladimir Putin might not come now or might put it off. What do you think?
You know, I have to admit, I don't worry a lot about whether there's a meeting or not having a meeting. What I worry more about is the substance. We need to be standing up against Russian aggression. We need to be standing up against Russian hostility. And when it comes to election interference, yes, they interfered in 2016, as they did in 2012, as they did in 2008. Russia's not our friend.
So why
and I do think the administration should be unequivocal.
Why does the president seem to have a tough time with that?
I don't know. Yeah. I think it was a mistake how he handled the press conference, but I think on substance, we should be unequivocal that Russia should not interfere in our elections, and there will be severe consequences if they do.
All right, now, has the president endorsed, I know you are for tough sanctions if they ever caught doing this again, but the president hasn't indicated support one way or the other for that effort.
You know, I don't know if the president has or not. I think we need to be using the tools we have, economic tools, sanctions, to prevent Russia from interfering in our elections. Our elections need to be protected, and Putin needs to stay away. And that question, that needs to be clear and unequivocal.
All right, real quickly, the president on calling tariffs the greatest. They can be very beneficial. He told a crowd today that he thinks it will all work out. You were worried, are you still?
Yeah, no, I'm still very concerned about the trade situation. It's the most consistent concern I hear from the Texas business community. The Texas business community is enthusiastic about the tax cut. It's enthusiastic about regulations being pulled back and seeing more jobs. But we're worried about trade, and we're worried about a trade war, and I think we need to be very cautious about not hurting jobs in the United States.
You know, sir, I know a 5G network via Verizon is coming to Houston, I believe, maybe other cities down the road. You're concerned that that whole 5G network thing not be sort of taken over by the government, or that we nationalize it, akin to, I guess, what the Chinese do. Could you explain?
Neil, that's exactly right. Verizon just announced that they're launching 5G networks in Houston, my hometown. Thrilled with that news. And, you know, if you look at the economic opportunity, 5G in the coming years has a potential to produce 3 million new jobs. It has the potential to produce $500 billion in economic activity. And I want to make sure it's the United States and the private sector that's driving that. There was a proposal within the administration to consider nationalizing 5G, taking over telecom. I think that would be a serious mistake. And so this week I filed legislation with Senator Cortez Masto, a Democrat, that would prohibit the federal government from nationalizing 5G.
I'm jumping on you rudely. I'm sorry. A break. See you later.